Hi friends, it's Delina. I wanted to make this video about school tips that I picked up in college. So, tip number 1. I titled this video from a Christian's perspective, so I put number 1 as prayer. So, this is not something that I did before in the past. This was recommended to me by my campus pastor. So I've never thought about that before. I mean, I used to just pray before my exam, just hope it goes well. But just when I started thinking, okay, I'm gonna give excellence to God also during my time studying, it just helped me focus when I prayed before I studied. So even if it was a topic that I didn't really have natural interest in, I wasn't naturally interested in it, but it just helped me focus. And so that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, convert your notes into test questions. Like, is this question going to be like how my professor might ask it about this information on an exam? I also had sticky notes that I brought with me to lectures. So during lectures, I would write my own questions on those sticky notes and then leave it to ask later to the professor during office hours if I didn't ask it during lecture. And it could be questions even if it's maybe I thought might not be asked on the exam, just because I was curious. I wanted to know, just that to show like genuine interest in the material. Also, ask yourself, am I where my professors expect me to be right now? If not, then I need to fix it and make some changes. So remember to keep the purpose in mind and spend quality time with your notes. Okay, next tip is to make the info yours. So that way, what I mean by that is to add personality into your notes, putting the context into your own lives. But let's see, you can make your notes like funny or silly. You can make your notes a party. An example I have from like my OChem notes for when okay, I added balloons because to make it a party per se. Here, my professor would have a skull stamp. Two of my OChem professors had this skull stamp, and they would just like hit their skull stamps down and like say, "This is really important." So it probably meant it was going to be on an exam. So I didn't have a skull stamp, so I just drew mine and just like deadly information you need to know. And also, if it was key information, I would add a key. So yeah, just making your notes kind of more lively, and instead of a star, of course I star too, star information as well. Making your mnemonics, that always helps. Like one of the reasons I remember why Furinos is a 5-membered ring is because the Furious 5. So silly mnemonics like that always help. Talk out the information and put it into your own words. So it just makes you more committed to that information. And for example, my friend, he like got like hundreds on everything. It was crazy, or even more. And one of how he studied was by talking to himself. Like his roommates would hear him talk to himself, and just for hours, or he would just call his study buddy friend, and they would talk out the information together. So, all right. Next tip is to activate your inner thinking voice, the voice where you can hear yourself talk. An example of this is when I'm reading the book and reading my textbook, and it explains something well, I just tell it, "Oh, good job, book," and it's like I'm having a conversation with the book in my mind. So, like a compliment it for explaining something that to me that I now understand much better. Tip number 5 is, yes, light candles. Or if you can't use candles, spray good smells around you. It just makes, it sets you for a good atmosphere, and you just feel better. Set those good moods in while you're studying. Alright, especially helps calm any stress you may have. Number 6 is to play classical music before you take your exam. Say you have an hour and you're waiting. My mentor suggested to not study an hour before the exam, but what I would do is just play classical music, and it would somehow motivate me or just really get me pumped to take my exam. So it works for me, maybe it'll work for you. Number 7, speaking of music, to study, I would listen to songs about the information, especially with my science classes. If it was like the Krebs cycle, I would hear a song about the Krebs cycle, write down the lyrics, and it was catchy enough to help me remember, like, what is the purpose of the cycle, and yeah, it works. Number 8, word the information in a way that even if you don't have to teach someone else, you are able to teach someone else. So that means like you gotta think like an expert. So one of the ways I would do that is sometimes I would just use my webcam, turn it on, and just pretend I'm teaching to myself, practice teaching to myself. And also, if I'm just in a room full of whiteboards, or other people are there, and maybe they think like, oh, she's talking to herself. Well, usually I'm alone, but if people come in and like, oh, she's talking to herself, they understand that you're studying. If you're like really seriously dedicated and you like really need to know this information, just be okay, like you're studying. And so talk if you need to, talk out loud. Draw the info in your mind. So this is especially helpful for visual learners, and it really prepares you for test day. For me, if I could close my eyes and picture what the information, what the chart looks like, or what the diagram looks like, it would help me so much for test day, because I was like, oh, I already know that picture when I am not able to refer to it, because it's already inside me. So another example of that is that I like to do to have a mental picture in my mind is I would buy these posters from the store, and just, especially for biochem classes, this is how it helped me to be able to draw the TCA cycle, all these other information like glycolysis, and on different parts of the board, and I just make it colorful. And having that, it's been like 1 or 2 hours, more likely 1.5, or to make these maps. But once I was done and I looked at it again, like I already knew where the information was on that map, and it was already here, even though I could refer to this back during finals if I needed to refresh on some information. But it was mostly all in my mind after I had created it out here. So that's a tip, and I have like a bunch of those like almost for every unit, especially with biochem. That's a heavy, dense course. And then 10 is make your notes super pretty, make it appealing, and organize them. Of course, you want to make them look good so that when you need to study them again, you're like more inclined to look at it.